the blade, and we will also be changing oil and adding new oil. 20 ounces is what this unit will take. So let's start with the sharpening of the blade. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go ahead and flip this on its side into this oil pan, and the oil drain is on this side here. Let me move it over a little bit. Take oil dipstick area. We're going to take the dipstick out, and this is where we're going to drain the oil out of this particular unit. And I would recommend for any of the more modern units always drain it through the oil fill instead of taking all these covers off and going through the bottom drain. Sometimes that leads to a whole lot more problems if you do that. Get a 9/16 for the blade. Okay, this blade is not too bad of a shape. We're going to go ahead and take the grinder. We'll go ahead and grind these edges up, just following the contour of what's already pre-existing on this blade. And we'll take the front of the top of the blade out flat, and then we'll grind the degree of the blade, how it is presented here on both ends, and then we'll balance it. Safety glass on the side. All right, I don't know that you can see this on camera, but this is going to be the finished edge of this blade. Ground in the back, of course, take any burrs off. Flattened in the front, and then we ground the, both ends are the same. So we ground this on the angle that's already established on the blade. And this blade will be fine. This is the opposite end. So we'll put it on here. It meshes up to the star that's on the bottom. This is a 5-point star adapter that's on here. Some of them have 6, but this particular one has 5. So the spec on this is what we call gut and tight. The German spec would be gut and tight. Okay. Basically looking to see if there's any debris up underneath in this area around these pulleys. That is a common fail point in these drives here. This one looks to be pretty good. I don't see or feel any other debris. So that all feels good. And the pulleys do spin freely, which is great. Okay. And we've completely drained out what's in the engine. So let's go ahead and pull forward. We're going to go ahead and take this carburetor off. Now in this particular instance, you don't have to take the carburetor off. If this was a new customer, it had come to us for the first time, we'd be taking the carburetor off, going through it, putting the ultrasound machine, draining the fuel tank, which we will still do both of these, but this customer hasn't been here in a few years. So he does, and we push Stabil, which is a product for the stabilization of the fuel. And pretty much most of our customer base has believed me in that, has followed that, and has subscribed to that, which works great. But this has been probably a little over 2 years. I didn't look at his last invoice since it's been here. But he claims he uses Stabil. I did not start it prior, but just for, just not that I don't believe the customer, but I want to go ahead and just pull that carburetor off there, just take a look at it. Make sure the fuel looks good and smells good. I'll probably throw it in the ultrasound machine for a few minutes and then wipe it down and reinstall it, and we'll go forward from there. Again, on this particular carburetor, it's the old, or not the old, it's the style of the plastic Briggs & Stratton carburetor that's on here, and I'll show that to the camera here once I get it completely off. I'm just taking the just dump this fuel out of here real quick. Here. Since the oil's out, I have no worries. We're cleaning the carburetor anyways. But stay in the habit of turning it over towards the oil side, which is the fill, and we'll call it the drain side also. I'm just draining the oil. I don't want it to get all over the floor here in the shop. Usually we do this out on the apron to the shop, and there we go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull the carburetor off. Should have just 2 linkages. Okay. This unit here, the carburetor is going to have a 2 screws in it. Pull that off. I'm going to throw it in that ultrasound machine and let this cook. Okay. Okay, we've just put the carburetor into the ultrasound. We'll let it cook for a few minutes. Although the customer has told me that they were using Stabil, I don't know they're using it all the time, because I looked at the fuel and it looked pretty dark to me. So that does not equate to the fact that they weren't using Stabil, but I just don't like the looks of the fuel that came out of the carburetor. So my belief is they were just using this machine today, it's 25th of November, to grind up leaves and before they brought it to the shop. So, but I can go ahead and go through the cooking procedure through the ultrasound, and then wipe it off. We'll reassemble it and go from there. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and clean out the fuel tank on the unit. So we're done with the oil at this point. There's going to be a little bit of gas discharge coming out of the fuel tank. So a little gas is going to get on the floor, but I've got some cat litter for that. So basically what I'm going to do in this is I'm going to blow breath of air down through the fuel tank and blow any excess or remaining fuel out of there. Then we'll put brand new fuel, just a little splash of fuel, blow that through to know that we've gotten the old stuff out. I don't like to use air compressors on this. People will typically take an air compressor nozzle and stick it down there and blow the air through there. You take the chance of, if you were to put your hand over this and blow, you could bust the seam on these tanks, or blow debris further down into this filter, where this has a filter, intake filter here, and create additional problems. So just a breath of air is good enough to blow this out and clean this. This is a newer mower where you should not have a problem. right? The tank actually dries up pretty good when you do that. And then we'll just take a splash of brand new gasoline and just run it through and let it drip through on its own, and then we'll blow it out again. And then I think we're ready for that carburetor to be reassembled. We'll pull it out of the pot. This is just a splash of gasoline, so you see it come. There it is. So you're not wasting that much fuel. And we'll let that rinse through, and we'll blow it out here. A little bit more gas than we usually have on the floor, but that will evaporate. Okay. Here we go. Okay. All right, we're going to start with the fuel bowl. Just wipe the fuel bowl out for this particular carburetor. Most of this is plastic. I'm going to say more than 90% of this is plastic. There are some a float pin and that section of the carburetor is going to be metal, but beyond that, everything else is plastic and rubber. There is a Welsh plug in there also that's metal. And the carburetor choke plate, that's going to be metal. But other than that, this is pretty much all that it consists of, mainly plastic. These carburetors are pretty efficient, though. Early on, it was when they first came out, and I'm going to say it's probably 8 to 10 years ago when they came out with these, and there was a lot of problems initially with them, with the jets, and then they quickly corrected all of that. Briggs did, and they've been pretty bulletproof, with the exception of the jet seems to be the problem in this particular model of carburetor. So, and I'll show you that also. All right. This will be the float. We'll just clean the float off here. We're looking for any signs of water, any kind of weight added to the float. There's no cracks. Looking for cracks, but I don't see any cracks in this particular one. So, that looks good. That's the float. That's the float bowl. All right, this is going to be the jet. Now this jet, 3 tubes. This does come apart here. This section here pulls out. We're not going to take that out. What we are going to do is look at this top jet up here, and that has actually a little clog in it. So the 3 on the bottom, 3 tubes on the bottom are open, and then this one up the top, this particular jet up the top, is clogged. So what we'll do, what I typically like to do, is pull here with our pliers. We're going to pull on a wire brush, pull one of the steel wires out, and we'll go ahead and run that through there as a cleaning tool to open up this jet. Just go down through each one of the jets, each one of these tubes here. Make sure they're open. This top jet was the only one I had a little bit of concern with, but it looks to be fine. Okay, I feel good with that. That seems to be fine. And then here's the body of the carburetor itself. It's going to be the body of the carburetor. Choke plate up top here. All the mechanism springs in place on this particular one. It says have two throttle and a choke rod. 2-rod unit. So taking the excess chemical off of it from the ultrasound cleaner. Moisture will clean all this up. We'll reassemble this. Now, obviously, you've seen many YouTube videos. Everybody has a different way of doing this, and different style tools. I'm just doing it as so the average person with minimal mechanical skills could do what we're doing here. You don't necessarily, we do have an ultrasound machine. That's the only thing that may not be available to someone. But I would say you can certainly take carburetor cleaner and lightly spray it onto this plastic and clean the carburetor. A can of that would be something that could be obtained pretty easily by someone wanting to do this on their own. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and reassemble this. All right. Just blowing through it, make sure the orifices are clean, everything looks good. By doing that, you'll be able to tell, believe it or not, whether you've done this once or been doing it for a while, you'll hear the blockage. You can hear the blockage if it had a blockage. Obviously, there's no blockage, and I can feel the air coming through. This would be the gas. The gas would flow through here, coming into the carburetor at this level. Just for point of reference. All right, what we'll do is put this jet in here. So the way this goes, if you look inside here, and I don't know if you can see that, the lighting's probably not that good. Let me get something to point to this. So down inside here, depending on our light, on this side is going to be a step up. It's going to be a piece of molded plastic within the carburetor that's high. And that's where this portion of this jet is going to go into, that high spot. So the inlet for the fuel is on this side, so it's always going to be on the back side of this particular carburetor. So to orient this, holding it in this altitude, we'll say, the inlet is coming in here. This is the step up. When I talk about how this is, it's stepped, this is the short side. So the short side is going to go to the back of this. This jet's going to face towards you. And what you're going to do, you're going to look in this carburetor. Now these don't, the newer ones don't have as much of a problem, but in the past, there's a little plastic piece inside here that would typically move around on you. And that's been corrected. So you're not going to see that. So you'll be able to push this in place by just taking your fingers and just pressing down. And you'll know when it's in place. You'll see that it's at this elevation here. It's pressed in. So that's all there is to the jet on this to plug that into play. Okay, so let's now do the float and float pin. So what you'll do is take the float, you'll put this needle valve in there, and then you'll put the float pin in here. Okay, and just line it up. Here's your carburetor. The thing to do with this is to snap it into place. So you're going to let it drop in here, center this, and snap this in. There it goes. To snap that pin, float pin, into place, and that'll hold the float in. Now at this point, you can do a couple of, a real simple test to know that this is in place and blocking the air. We're going to blow into the inlet side of the carburetor. And what this is going to determine if the float, this plunger, is holding the air back. So in this elevation, the way it's held up, no air should be able to get through. When I turn it over, once this float drops down, so if I want to test that float by blowing into it, I'm going to blow into it. And no air is escaping. So that's just a test to know that that needle is seated in there properly and in play. Okay? So now we're going to take the bottom of the carburetor, and the orientation of this is, let me get something to point this out, is there's a deeper section of this carburetor bowl. Let me wipe that out a little bit. Moisture in there. So what's going to happen here is the high side of this this jet, where this jet comes down, you're going to orientate this, the bowl, to the base of the carburetor. Oops. Make sure I didn't crack it by dropping it. It is a problem, but we're good. All looks good. So again, this high side on the base of the carburetor, you go ahead and place that over top of that, line it up to the holes, and then just press it into place. Okay? So now what we'll do, go ahead and reassemble this with the screws, the base screws on this, and we'll put it on the unit, and then hook up the fuel line, and then we'll add the oil, and we'll check everything from there and go forward. So let me go back on this. So the carburetor base, this bowl, the screws are the longer screws. So out of the 6 screws total that you'll take out for this project, these longer screws will be the ones going into the base of the carburetor, the longer ones. You're going to only tighten them up where you get resistance, and that should be enough. There is an O-ring that goes around the base of the gasket here that will seat, and I've seen these where people that had shops had brought them in. There was no screws in there, and they were holding fuel. but you don't want to do that. You don't want to take that chance. Okay, so the shake test there is, make sure your float is going up and down. Again, blowing into it, breaths of air, and flipping it over, and giving that test again that no air is escaping. So this carburetor seems to be functioning fine. So what I'm not going to show you is how I'm going to put this linkage on, because I'm not going to move the camera to show you that, but there's a, so how I do it is there's a thicker rod that goes in the back. This is going to be the internal choke rod for this. This is the front rod. This is throttle, this is choke. The back one is the throttle. So we're going to go ahead and pop it into the top of the carburetor here. That slips right on. Then the other choke rod, this second rod, is going to go in the front here. There's a spot that it'll plug right into. Then on the back of the carburetor, there's an O-ring and a plastic gasket on the base of the back of the carburetor. Just make sure that when you took this off, or when you take it off, it's not staying with the motor. In this particular one, it stayed on the back of the carburetor. It's a white ring typically with a black O-ring inside. That all stayed on the carburetor in this particular instance. So we're just going to push this onto the engine. Here. Okay, that's seated. We're going to hook up the fuel line. We've already flushed this out. We're going to go ahead and grab our pliers here and put the clamp back where the fuel line clamp goes here onto this hose, the fuel hose. On. Now let's go ahead and add oil. Get this down. Let's go ahead and add oil. All the oil is drained out. Let's get it out so we don't step in it. And it's going to take 20 ounces of oil. We'll measure that out quickly. Set up. Here. It's going to be a 10W30 in this particular mower. $20 ounces going into it. Okay. So we're good with that. Go ahead and put a little bit of fuel in here. Now I have not put the carburetor air box on, or the cover, or a filter. I want to go ahead and pour a little bit of fuel. Now all the fuel that comes out of our shop is treated with Sta-Bil. So, okay. All right. And wipe this off. This is the dipstick. Clean this all up at the base here. All right, let's check our oil. Let's double check our oil from our measuring cup, the measurement there. Let's see where we're at on the dipstick. And this is just the initial dip, but here's the two safe dots here, and there's the arrow. So it's dead on. It's dead on. So 20 ounces is the key in these particular Briggs engines. All right, we're going to clear, make sure everything's clear from underneath the mower. We have oil in it. We have fresh fuel in this mower. Everything's out of the way. It's going to get loud for a second. I'm going to go ahead and try to start it. Now, remember the air box and stuff is off. We're going to pull the baler back and will be fine. We'll make some minor adjustments here when I say that. We're going to flip it over on its side again. We're going to put the air box back on, and then we're going to install a new filter. We're going to install the filter cover, and then we're going to try the drive. So at this point, I'm confident that this will be a success story for this particular job. Go ahead and do this. Okay. So also you've got to remember when you install this air box, the back of the air box, it mates to the carburetor. There's a little plastic tube, a breather tube. What you want to do obviously is line that up with this on the back of the this air box housing. This is the back of the housing. It's going to go in here. I guess get as clean as you can. Remember now, this is not the space shuttle. This is not the space shuttle we're building here. So a little bit of dirt in a lawnmower. I'm sure people disagree, but it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt the longevity of the mower in any way. But do your best to clean things up. Okay, should be good. Okay. So your outer screws are the bigger ones, and I guess traditionally, or from what I can remember for years, they've always been the black colored ones. The silver ones will go in closer to the two holes, but these two will go to the outer portion of the cover. Not the cover, but the air box. And they're 5/16 or 8 millimeter. What you use in this case. And the two smaller silver screws are going to go to the inside. That's what they look like here. Right, and these particular ones, size-wise, are going to be the, looks like, 9/30 seconds. 9/32, 9/30 seconds is the socket size that I'm using. Again, not over tightening, just to give you a tiny bit of resistance and back off. All right, we're gonna grab a filter out of the cabinet here. Right. Just going to get the new filters installed. Okay, this is the old filter. All right. And at this point, we'll stand this back up. First of all, I think we'll probably take a little bit of air, compressed air, and blow this the body through. But I'll tell you what, why don't we wait? We'll just wait for that. Let's go ahead and just wanted to clean around the base, but I can do that at any time, blow out there and everything. So we'll stand it back up. We want it to set for a minute or so to get the oil to run back down into the unit. And then we'll give the customer his old parts back. In the meantime, what we'll do is also check the spark plug. Now, I'm not a big believer in changing these plugs, and again, I'm going to get people disagreeing what they want to do about the spark plug. We will check the plug and check how it's burning, but if it doesn't have to be replaced, we're not going to replace it. Sure, it's an RC12YC shape. We'll see here in a second what this is. Well, now this plug does have a little bit of oil, and you can see where it's burning. But in this particular instance, the unit sounds very good. I think we can get away with a cleaning on this one. We'll see how it runs. And if it doesn't run to my liking, we'll certainly pop another plug in there, but there's nothing wrong with this plug. People just get excited about these spark plugs and constantly changing. I prefer to see the plug not taken out, brought to the shop, so I can see how it's burning if that's what their problem is. If it's not starting or whatever, I want to see what that plug looks like. It gives me an indication where I need to go. But in this instance, this was just started here a few minutes ago and running fine. So we're just going to clean this one out. We're going to check the gap, and we're going to go from there. But I think we're going to be fine on this plug. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with this plug. Plug is fine, it's burning fine, the gap is fine. Let me double check that. Gap is fine. So we'll put this back in and we'll start it up and see where we're at with this plug, and we'll determine from there. We do have to still clean this mower, but after we clean it, wipe it down, we'll check the drive once I start it this time, see what the drive looks like. Okay. Make sure all your tools are out from under the mower. It looks good. Pull the baler back. on success. This one sounds good. It's got the right sound to it. We can certainly check that with a meter. But as far as runnability and startability of this unit, I gauge it on. So, and there's another thing that I do on these mowers. So, if you got an elderly person who's somebody is up in age, we'll say, that brings you a mower and they're still cutting the grass, I actually have them start the mower, and I will. This customer, when he comes here tomorrow to pick up this mower, I'll have him go through his starting procedures, and I'll correct anything that I see he may or may not be doing. But what we'll do with that is the customer has to be able to start the machine. I can start it, but it's no good if the customer gets it home and it doesn't start. So again, we're encouraging them with the Stable. We're not sponsored by Stable in any way at this point, but I do encourage it. It works, it does. So again, this mower probably, and I'd have to look at the invoices, but I think it's been over 3 years or more. This was a newer machine, I think, at the time, and he had troubles right from the factory. And so he indicated to me he was taking it to our other shop, which is, we haven't been in that shop for 4 years here next month, December. So it probably is a, people guess at the time. But regardless, this has been just a basic tune-up we would do in our shop that you can do at home. There's nothing special about this. Everything's off the shelf. If you needed it for it, you can certainly match the stuff at one of the big box stores. So I would encourage you. I mean, I don't see, if you want to learn something and have a little bit of mechanical ability, go for it. I think that you can. Hey, thanks for watching, and like, subscribe, and share if you would. Thank you.